Strickland, and I want to introduce you to change agents for social justice. And this is a show that is going to talk about different issues in our communities and different things we can do to be able to create change in our community. So we're happy to have you. We thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to getting into it.
Strickland travels the country leading programs in prisons for governments and court systems. In Georgia, he partners with several schools to teach courses aimed at helping students make better choices. But Strickland isn't a teacher. In fact, he is a convicted felon who admits to selling drugs across the country, and it started when he was just 13 years of age.
This is what change looks like. When we come out here, we stand in front of our power. When we come out here, we demand justice. When we come out and we make them change laws so that we can't be shot in the street, so that our families got the same protection as every other family. That's what change looks like.
So I want to start off by giving you guys a little background on what we mean when we say change agents for social justice. When we talk about social justice, we're talking about the oppression that different people have faced in the United States. We talk about the inequities and opportunities, and we're talking about how can we look at where we are, look at what resources we have, and then make changes in our communities so that our communities can have the same opportunities as everybody else's. So how can we make changes so our children can have opportunities, so that our communities look like more prominent communities or more successful communities, or communities where people just have a better quality of life? And what can we do, regardless of our resources, our backgrounds, no matter what we got going on, how can we work together to create a better opportunity in our community? That's what we mean when we say change agents for social justice. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm originally from Chicago, but I grew up in the streets. I made a lot of mistakes. And because we didn't have opportunities in our community, we didn't have nonprofits organizations, we didn't have the best schools and resources, I ended up getting into the streets. So I started selling drugs at a young age. I did years while I was incarcerated, and it took a long time for me to be able to see clearly and for me to be able to make better decisions. Now I own a company that consults governments. We create programs for courts, schools, all kinds of different institutions, so that we can help people have the opportunities that we didn't have when we were coming up. So that's what we mean by being a change agent. I went from being somebody who sold dope in my community to somebody that created opportunities in my community. So I want to introduce you guys to Josh Powell. Josh Powell is a two-time, how many championships you got, Josh? Two-time NBA champion, championship athlete. He won with Kobe at the Lakers. And Josh is not just an NBA player. Josh also is an activist. So I want to give a little background on Josh and who he is and why social justice and being a change agent is important to him also.
Well, yeah, I appreciate having me on, and just being a kid from Atlanta. Grew up on the South Side, went to Riverdale High School, went on to go to North Carolina State to pursue my dreams as a professional athlete, went for 2 years, and then I played for 18 years professionally. Father, just a young man who's here to serve and do God's work, and just continuing to do my part, in the community, and just being a part of amazing things and meeting amazing people, and just blessed to have an opportunity to meet with Keith, and we've been able to build over the last several months since day one, and I was very excited to be a part of this opportunity, and to throw my ideas and things out there in the hat, and just wanted to, encourage people on another note, the power within themselves, which is also a part of change, which is very important, is to understand your value and your worth. And, taking care of home meaning the mind, home meaning the heart and your spirit, and being able to build upon that and go from there. And it's always good to educate yourself and continuing to, do your own research so that you can be your own thinker, and be able to make decisions and understand the things that you need to understand going on daily, which is an important process, because we all have a powerful voice. We all have, a strong presence to be able to create the change that we want to see.
Yeah. So first, before we get into this, I want to just thank Rolling Out, Because if it weren't for the people that are rolling out, we wouldn't have this platform. We wouldn't have this opportunity to come together and discuss this and to be able to share this with others. Because you just got to give thanks for the people who did the work for you to be able to have the opportunities you have. Because we can't change our community without platforms. If we don't have a place to come together, if we don't have a place where we can all share and build and let each other know it's not just you, and to share these tips and share these tools, then nothing's gonna change. So thank you for rolling out. But Josh, let me ask you this: when you look at the changes in Atlanta from the time when you came up, when you play basketball all across the world, you got children now. How many things have you seen change because of people who did the work? Like when we look at John Lewis, we look at Dr. Vivian, we look at people like Paul Williams who just passed, and we look at the work that they've done. How much do you see that's changed your life, the impact it's had on, the ability to raise your children with the opportunities you never imagined?
I mean, I think the opportunities have been great and amazing. Obviously, there's still a lot more work to be done, but I'm definitely beyond thankful, to know that my kids can have access or have resources to, certain things, especially when it comes to their education, when it comes to, some of the opportunities because of some of the people that they've been able to be around. And it's been a huge help for me because, from a parenting aspect, I know for sure that I don't try to do a whole He-Man role and think that I can do everything on my own. And it's good to be able to have a village. It's good to be able to have different minds, good, strong, solid people to be able to support and to be able to help in the time of need, whether that's, from a spiritual standpoint, an educational standpoint, or even from, a parent to child relationship. So just across the board, just seeing how many things are going on from businesses and how we're bosses and being able to not only be bosses, but do things in the cities and being able to turn that around and give back and pour into our communities as well. So, salute to those kings for everything that they're doing. And obviously, as we're all growing and evolving, we got to continue to pass those torches. So, just continuing to do that work and continuing to stay the course, to get ready for that next generation to come up and do the same work as well.
And something I think about all the time is I got incarcerated for the first time at about 13. And by the time I was 16, I had already got my first felony, been arrested well over 25 times. But now every single place that I've been incarcerated in has our programs inside of there for the same school system. And I was expelled out of. I'm now on the board for that school system. And I've consulted now 2 presidents, right? So when I look at change agent, the reason why these things are important to me is because it shows that it's possible. When I was teaching at schools before, when I didn't have a high school diploma, right? I'm a convicted felon, but I speak at the Capitol multiple times a year to be able to talk about criminal justice reform, because that's the space that we're in now. If you're willing to step up, if you're willing to do the work, you can make changes. And who better to advocate on behalf of a community than a person in that community? Who better to talk about the needs of a group of people than a person that went through it that didn't have what they needed, right? So when I talk about being a change agent, when I talk about fighting for social justice, when I talk about creating the opportunities of liberation out of opportunities of oppression, that's what I'm talking about. So, okay, are we starting with our first guest? Well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's start talking about who our guest will be for tonight. So tonight we will have Rob Hardy, who is the founder of Rainforest Films and Rainforest Entertainment. We'll have Kimberly Jones, who is an amazing author, but not just an author, a powerful advocate and spokesperson and all kind of different amazing things. Then we're gonna have Hannah, and I'm not gonna try to say her last name because I always kill her last name, but Hannah is a journalist who started a movement and a company called, oh my God, I'm about to call it wrong.
Promote positivity.
Yep. And Hannah has now led the longest protest in the state of Georgia history. What are they at, like 60 some odd days straight now?
Yeah.
So we'll have a great group of people today to be able to talk about what does it mean to be a social justice leader? How can you get going? What are some of the things that we've seen that have made impacts? And I want people to really understand that when you see problems in your community, when you see lack of opportunity in your community, it doesn't have to stay that way. Like, you had the ability to make that different. You had the ability to change. So I believe it's time for us to go ahead and get our first guest in. So Okay. Let me see how I do this to allow them to talk. All right. Before we do that, let me ask you one more thing. If you had one thing that you could say to our young people right now, one thing that you could say to inspire them to look at the issues going on in their own neighborhoods and to really jump in and to become that person who makes a change, what would you tell them, Josh?
Consistency is key. I think that's a major thing of importance. And I know it's easy to get discouraged, especially when you feel like things aren't quite necessarily going your way, or you're not getting the answers that you're wanting. But I think over time and overall, that when you're continuing to stay the course on the things that you believe in, continuing to force the issues, continuing to make sure that your voices are heard, those are the things that eventually will cause that change that you're looking for. And, I just always just encourage anybody to not only be consistent, but to make sure that you are being heard in some way, shape, or form. Don't necessarily put the pressure on yourself to try to figure out a way to do it perfectly or this, that, and the third. But I think just doing it is a start.
Yeah.
And once you get a start, then you can go from there. But then the other part is not quitting. Just like in anything else that we do or we're a part of, or even people that we love, an important thing and why the relationships remain how they do is because you don't quit and you wake up every day and you go to sleep fighting those same things and you start over the next day. So, I just think stay in the course, making sure that you continue to be consistent and also knowing the power and understanding your voice. For sure.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think that's a great time for us to go ahead and pull Rob in on the conversation, because one thing that he's really big on is making sure you put the right people in the room for their voices to be heard. So I think that's a good cue for bringing him in. Okay. Rob, are you here?
I am. I see you guys. Can you guys see me?
No, we can't. You need to click in your video down at the bottom.
All right, hold on. Yeah, I'm not seeing that one. All right, hold on 1 second.
Right. So while he's doing that, I just want to follow up on what you were saying, Josh, about being consistent. I remember, man, when we first started trying to go into schools in about 2007, right? People looked at us like we were crazy because convicted felons coming into a school. What could you really teach a kid when you made these mistakes? And the best way to be able to tell a child not to make a mistake is by letting them see the mistakes you made and letting them see the impacts it made on your life and letting them know that you went through some of those same challenges. So if it wasn't for us being consistent, for us staying in there, then yeah, we would have never gotten into the schools. Hey, Rob, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you coming on. But blessing everybody
for having me tonight.
What was that?
I said I appreciate y'all having me tonight.
Oh man, it's truly a pleasure. So the reason why I wanted you to come on is because you do this great thing where you facilitate conversations between different groups of people. You allow your influence and your stature to be able to bring different people in the room, but you do that with the goal of people being able to sit down, find common ground, and then be able to build their own relationships from there. So Josh was just talking about how important it is to make sure that your voice is heard and making sure that your voice is pushing it forward, right? So yeah. I feel like you could pick up on very well.
Well, listen, I believe that one of the biggest issues that a lot of us have is access to each other. And a lot of times, we may be feeling the same things. You may have the same frustration, but you just kind of in your own bubble and feeling like maybe nobody else really hears you or understands you, or you don't really know how to get help or how to find out what people need. And I think sometimes that by, putting people in a room together, by allowing people to sit down and talk about their perspective, then we get a chance to understand more the fact that, we all in the same boat together. Just because somebody live in a different part of town or grew up a different way or has a different job doesn't make them any different from you, right? Because I think we all want love and respect, and we all want to be safe. We all want, this world to be a great place for our kids. I mean, we all want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, right? And I think sometimes that by, bridging the gap and putting us behind closed doors where we can talk, we can cut through all the politics sometimes and just kind of get to the real issue. And you might find somebody that's got the same mission as you, and you might find out there's a lot more love around than you thought. And then we can put that together and make some stuff happen. So, I'm glad anytime we get a chance to do that, because I really feel like when you just turn on the news and when you see what's happening in the streets, I mean, it's some dark stuff that's happening. You know what I'm saying? But then you also discover that there are also some, champions, and there are also some great people that want to do great things, that want to really help. And you get a chance to put those people together so we can make some changes around here.
Hey, Ron, I want to bring them in on something that we just did that happened here in Atlanta. So recently we had a really unfortunate incident where a young lady was driving through a barricade that had been put up by different people in the community. So after the police killing of a resident in a neighborhood, the neighborhood decided that they were going to block off that area so that people couldn't drive through the area anymore. So they put up their own barricade, and when somebody tried to drive through the barricade, they ended up shooting into the car, and that killed the child that was in the back seat in the car seat. So what we decided to do was we wanted to talk to some of these different younger people and some of these different groups who were taking it into their own hands to police their own communities, right? So we got representatives from different groups in the community. We got different gangs in the community. We got people from the mayor's office, the sheriff's office, the police department, all kinds of people from the city. And we had a conversation. And the reason why we wanted to do that is so that people could understand that we're all trying to get to the same place, what resources are available, and what can we do so that we can accomplish these common goals without any of this violence. And I just wanted to share that, because when you talk about these things, a lot of times you can't see what that looks like in action. But we left out of there with value, we left out of there with new connections and relationships, and we left out of there with people being able to see, oh, okay, there's some stuff going on in my neighborhood that I didn't even know about. And we also can see how some people feel in the neighborhood when you're making decisions on their behalf and you don't even know who these people are. So when you talk about us being able to bring the conversation to closed door setting and have conversations and people can just be open and honest and build, that's what that looks like. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation and just share what it actually, how can it be impacted? Because a lot of times we talk about stuff, but people can't see why they need to do that in their own neighborhood. Because if you look at the decision makers who may be over a community, even if they grew up with the same struggles or fears or difficulties, it may have been a long time since they went through that. So if they're not talking to people who are going through it right now, then they may not know what these people are facing. And then if you got one group of people working on one area and another people working in another area, you could be missing resources and y'all could be working against each other because you don't know who each other are. So I just want to bring that up and let people know, like, it doesn't really matter how many connections you have. If you start, it's going to build. Like, you didn't start off knowing everybody. Just you own an amazing film company. You done work all around the world. Your name may have recognition, but that doesn't mean you have every relationship. You got to build these relationships. You got to foster them. You got to invest into them. Same thing with you, Josh. Like you were most of the time. I mean, you won multiple championships and you built this platform for yourself. But it doesn't mean you don't have to go out here and get your hands dirty and go out here and try to reach people. You got to go out here and do the same thing as everybody else and bring people to the table. And once you bring people to the table, then you got to start letting people get their own influence and get their own goals. And you come together on the common goals and you build from there. Is there anything I'm missing in that? Anything else you would like to add to it?
I just like to say that it's about having a relationship. And if you got a relationship with somebody that you like, or you got a relationship with your kid or with your parent or whatever, that relationship's not going to be good if you don't talk to them. If you don't find out like what's important to them and why they feel how they feel, and you guys might always be butting heads just because you have two different perspectives. But if you sat down and said, okay, tell me why you feel this, or tell me how I could do a better job at helping you or showing you this, because you may really love that person or have a lot of love for your brother or your sister or your kid or your spouse. But if you guys don't talk, then you don't really know where somebody's coming from. So then you can let something, that you perceive as disrespect, you can let something that you feel like nobody's listening to you, make you feel a certain kind of way and act out because you feel like nobody's there for you. That's why I feel like it's important that we talk to find out where everybody's coming from and what each other needs. And everybody can't do everything for everybody, but there may be certain people where I could do this because that's where I'm at, and vice versa. And I feel like if everybody does something, and if we can connect with somebody else that needs that something, then we all feel like we're part of something bigger.
Yeah, I'm gonna click Kim in because I feel like, she adds great value into this also. So Kim, I'm gonna unmute you. Oh, there you go. Is your video showing?
Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can. Do you want to give a little background on who you are, what you do, and why you're so big, and so why you have so much investment into this space?
Well, I'm an author by trade. That's what I do. And I write YA novels. So I write books for young adults. So my books are for kids ages 14 and up. So because of that, I spend a lot of time in the school systems. I travel. Last year, I did 2 national tours around the country, going to different schools and talking to kids. And I've focused my energy on making sure that I'm talking to a specific type of kid. Like I write for a specific type of kid. Most people know my organization, Hood Girls Can Be Heroes Too. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in the infamous Wild Hundreds. And I grew up in a space where I never saw myself reflected on the page. I never saw myself reflected in a positive light. On TV and film and things like that. And the narrative about the hood girl was a very derogatory narrative. And I'm like, low key, Oprah a hood girl. Like she grew up poor. And like Maya Angelou is a hood girl. And like, it's all the, Judy who owns the hair care line. She's a hood girl. Supa's a hood girl. Taraji's a hood girl. Tiffany Haddish is a hood girl. You got all these hood girls that are like making waves and making successes of themselves. But the narrative about us was always negative. Mm-hmm. And it was always, to me, coming from a perspective of we need to mute that voice. We don't need to hear anymore from the hood girl. That's not a valid voice. And I just felt like, the library for white kids is infinite. It's never ending. It's every story. It's every through line. But for us, it was like I started to see this momentum to say, okay, we want to exalt a certain type of Black girl, and anybody that doesn't fit this category, then we don't want to hear from her. And then I'm going to schools and girls are telling me they don't read the books that people are giving them because they don't see themselves. So I was like, so if nobody else is going to write for y'all, I'm going to write for y'all because I'm a hood girl. You know what I mean? So that became kind of like my focus. And so I started working with nonprofits because when you tour as an author, when schools bring you in, they pay you and they pay your travel and they purchase books for the school. But Title I schools didn't have the budget for that. And so when I started to realize that, I started to work with nonprofits and organizations that were able to, and I started paying for I'll pay for myself to go if you just get the kids the books, if you'll just pay for the books. So that's one of the things that I'm working on right now with my co-author, Geely. We're working on putting together a nonprofit that's going to pay for authors to go to Title I schools, pay for a classroom set of books for them. And then independent authors who they don't get those opportunities, we're going to groom them to also make those trips to school and be able to get in front of kids. And so all of that led to on this journey. And I've been on the front lines. One of my best friends is Yanaja Lone Wolf, who's always organizing a march. So I'm always showing up with Yo. And so I've been on this journey for a very long time. And so the day that I recorded the video that went viral, the How Can We Win video, which is what most people know me from now. They don't even know about my previous work with kids. But the day that I recorded that video, I was just tired. Yeah. I was just so tired of people taking the narrative and switching it up to their benefit. You had all these peaceful protests, and I saw all the news and all the directives start to go to the violence that was happening. That was a very small portion of what was happening. And all I was trying to say is, I'm not gonna let y'all redirect the narrative. We're not gonna lose focus and sight on what it is that's actually happening. And truthfully, at the end of the day, we're gonna be back here and you're gonna see more rioting and more unrest until we actually start addressing why people are this upset. Y'all so focused on the what, nobody's paying attention to the why, and you're just gonna see the why again. And so I was just like, there was no edit button from my head to my mouth. I had settled on the fact that I probably was gonna get canceled. No school was gonna bring me in. I thought my publisher was gonna drop me, but I was like, hey, I'll figure it out on the back end side. But for the most part, is, you know, obviously I have my share of trolls and people who disagree with me, but by and large, most people understood. And mostly what I've been getting, besides Black people being like, sis, you said what we were all thinking, was white people being like, man, I never had heard it put that way, and in such a concise way, and you educated me. Because I had a white man tell me last night that when he watched the Watchmen, that opening scene with Tulsa from the Watchmen, he thought that was fake.
Wow.
He didn't realize that was an actual incident.
So let me ask something, Kim, real quick. So just what you just brought up about how, because our learned lived experiences are so different, because you got a minority group that's suppressed, but then you have a majority group who's lived in, you know, a total different bubble of life, right? Do you feel like that's why it's so important for people like yourself to be able to even put your platform at risk, to put what you took a lifetime to invest in to be able to get to that point of? You don't understand it. Like, you dedicated years and years and years to your craft and to your profession, but you were willing to put that at risk because your voice needed to be heard for the people that didn't have a platform and didn't have a voice. Why do you feel like it's so important that we represent for those people who can't represent for themselves?
I think it's just because, you know, it's the oldest saying in the book, but it's the truest. Like, to whom much is given, much is expected. You know what I mean? And it's like, at this point, all the blessings that I've had along the way, if it's just for me, then that's whack. Yeah. That's like super whack. If it's just for me, if it's just for the promotion of self, if the only person in the world I'm concerned about is myself and my brand and what I'm doing, to me, to function in that way is less than what God created me to do.
I want to bring up something that I did today that I felt really blessed to have the opportunity to do. So we had this big conversation going on around the city of Atlanta about the water boys, about them being on the corner selling water, about them being aggressive because if people don't want to buy water, then they get upset, right? And what I've been saying is the young men, the young women who are out here doing this stuff, they're coming from a community where they're starving. They don't have opportunities. They don't have a plan 2 or a plan B, or they don't have any of that, right? And then they don't have guidance. They don't have resources. They don't have the opportunity to learn how to do it the right way. So today I took it upon myself to ride around the city and to pull up on different groups of young men and young women selling water. And I asked them politely, hey, do you mind if I give you some tips and if I show you different ways to do this? And I asked them for a bottle of water, and I went out and I showed them how to properly serve the car. When they stop at the light, how to ask, is it okay to approach them, and then how to communicate with them. And everybody sold more water. Everybody. They asked the young people asked when adults come out, continue that with them. Because they like, we want to learn. We don't want to do it the wrong way. They just don't know the right way. So to me, like you just said, it can't just be about us, right? Like, the whole city has an opinion on the water boys, right? But if half of the people, a tenth of the people who have an opinion would take the time and go speak with them, take the time to go stand with them, take the time to just say, hey, look, let me tell you what I know. Like Josh said, you don't have to know it all, but if you share what you do know, then now you add in. You become a resource instead of just a person who's complaining. Because again, the same way that gentleman who you spoke with didn't know what happened in Oklahoma was real, a lot of people don't understand. These young men, these young women, they going home without utilities. They going home trying to feed a younger sibling. They going home into an environment where they're praying at night that they don't have a bullet that comes through their window or through their walls. So while we're upset because they clearly do need training, they clearly do need to understand to clean up behind themselves, not to be so aggressive, not to be so attitudinous if they don't make a sale. But just like Rob said, if we do not share, if we do not come together and have conversations, if we don't open up and let each other know, this is what I see from my perspective, if we don't build that circle of relationship, nothing's gonna change. It influences and impacts all of us. That young lady who was shot driving down the street, they didn't decide that they wanted to put up a barricade in their community, but the barricade still impacted their life forever, right? So this is a shared problem because we all walk on the same streets, we all breathe the same air, we all live in the same city. So regardless of what part of the community you live in or what your placement is in the community, you still are a part of it. So if we don't do this together, if we don't come together and create a solution, we all gonna have to deal with the problem one way or another. Like you look at all of you are raising children. Your children gotta marry somebody. They gotta be friends with somebody. So if we don't reach outside of our homes, nothing changes, right? So I want to click Hannah in real quick. Hannah has started an organization, and Hannah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you cut your video on, Hannah?
Oh, okay. Thought it was.
At least we were consistent with this. All of us had the issue with cutting on our video. So show we a good team. We got each other's back.
Yeah. All right.
Hannah, can you turn your camera?
Yeah. Okay. How are we? Good?
No, we're not good. So first, if you don't mind, Hannah, you could say the name of your organization and your name. I always mess up your last name, so I don't want to do that tonight.
Yeah, it's all good. Hey, everybody. My name is Hannah Joy Gebrselassie. I'm the founder of the Promote Positivity Movement. We started about almost 2 years ago, and we focused on different initiatives. And most recently, in the last 2 months, we started the Line of Solidarity, where we were protesting in Atlanta for 50 days straight. And then we converted over to virtual protesting, fighting for justice, fighting for the end of oppression, fighting for the end of systemic racism and unjust police brutality, educating our peers on different fight, whether it's pushing legislation. We've been able to connect with Brother Keith here. He's given us so many gems over the last 2 weeks, or excuse me, 2 months. So yeah, we're continuing to just educate ourselves on how we can push policy as well as, you know, get more engaged from a civic engagement standpoint.
Okay. So the reason why I wanted to bring Hannah on tonight, for one, is just to speak on the amazing work she's been doing and the dedication. Hannah actually had, even through that time period, she was giving support to make sure that they still had the leadership and they just had the support that they needed to continue to work. I mean, I've watched her really like make sacrifices to do this, right? But I wanted to talk about, as you've gotten into this work, what are some of the things that you've learned and some of the things you've experienced that helped you be a better social justice leader and just help you to dive deeper into the work?
Yeah, there's definitely several things you learned along the way. And I know one of them is being able to connect with those around you. I see our brother Josh Powell on this call as well. And, you know, he's been a tremendous support factor since the beginning, since day one. He came out with his children. And, you know, it's that type of support. And there's so much support out there. You have to be willing to, you know, just understand how every one of us can play our part and accept the support. And yeah, coming into this role as like as a leader of this protest and everything, I never thought I would be in this specific position, you know, but it just happens. And when you're called for it, you just you gotta go. And you have to understand that your actions will affect everyone that's with you. So if you're very, very passionate about local voting, the people that are there are going to get passionate about it. If you're passionate about the census, they're going to get passionate. If you're passionate about vetoing HB 838, they're going to get passionate about vetoing HB 838. So you have to set the tone for the people following and understand that it's always going to be a learning curve. You know, throughout this whole process, we've learned so much, and we tend to go back to seeing what they did, you know, in the 60s and how they were able to overcome different things, even when there's tension between groups, or, you know, at the moments where we had to, you know, part ways with some people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just you learn that you guys got different. And as long as we're all fighting for this better world, fighting for justice, we don't necessarily always have to be, you know, staying in the same lane. But it is very important to collaborate with other people. And the more, the merrier. If there's a march going on, we don't need to like just stay where we are. Let's go over there. Let's participate with what they got going on. You know, they've been doing this, and you don't always have to just stay focused in on your space. So I've learned those things and more, being able to listen, you know, being able to learn from those around you. I'm not the smartest person there. You know, none of us are, because everybody knows something that somebody else doesn't. So we in learning mode, you know, continuing to just push forward. So yeah, those are a few of the things I learned.
Hey, Hannah, also I want to ask you this, from the relationship at the state capitol, I introduced you to one of the state representatives to become friends with. Also, like your relationship in your career, where you were able to use some of your relationships and the people who you knew from at the station where you at 11 you've been at different stations, but different reporters who you had relationships with, just being able to lean into those relationships. That's one of the things Rob was talking about earlier. You add value to the relationships you have while expanding more. So how have the relationships you built how those helped you in this work.
Oh yeah, they've definitely helped tremendously. When you talk about relationships, you know, people that I've worked with or contact with 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago were like, oh, we see what y'all are doing. We want to be a part of it. Oh, we want to support. Or they have my direct cell or, you know, my Instagram or my Twitter. So they can just send me a message. Hey, we want to come cover y'all. We like what y'all are doing. And, you know, visibility is great. So yeah, to all of our peers in the news and the media industry, we welcome that kind of coverage because, you know, we know that that's going to be able to get the word out more and continue to educate our peers as we fight for justice. So yeah, it's important to lean in on those relationships and know that everyone can contribute in some shape or form. You know, we had people that donated the stereo system we use with the mic, they all the pictures. That was a contribution from different people coming together saying we want to buy whatever y'all need. You know, we had people donating snacks, transportation, or Uber rides for volunteers, for all sorts of things. I never once asked for any of that. They just saw us out there and they were like, what can we do to help? We can't come out because it's the middle of a pandemic. We either are home with our, you know, grandparents, home with little kids. We can't risk it, but what can we do to support y'all out there? And so every relationship, whether it was from the community or media or any other sphere of life, they really showed up and supported. So thank you to everyone who supported. And it is important to lean in on those relationships and be visible. You know, show what you're doing in a way where obviously you're not, you know, doing too much, but it's okay to say, hey, everyone, we're working on this initiative. If you would like to get involved, let us know and we'll let you know how you can support the movement. Yeah,
I want to bring that back to Josh and to Rob because both of you guys do a great job at that. I've seen Josh bring people from the NBA so that they can know what's going on directly in the streets, so they can have relationships and they can actually talk and, you know, have communication with people. Rob, you're all about making sure that you're leveraging your relationships to bring people to a table where they might not sit at the table across from another person unless you brought them there, right? So why are those things so important to you guys? Make sure that you're leveraging all of that and bringing it to social movement.
You know, for me, it's important because for a lot of me and my friends, you know, there are things that we were kind of already doing to try to, you know, help and to try to, you know, make things better. But after a while, you just kind of talking to the same people and just doing the same things. And so you don't feel connected as much as you want to. So it's like, all right, well, then who do we know that knows, you know, people over here, over here, over here, and how do we get together? Because I feel like if you want to do good, if you want to help, if you want to do something, then the spirit of that, you know it when you see it. You know when somebody's really about that. And, you know, to Kim's point, you know when somebody's making it about them versus they're making it about the mission and about the work. You can tell that off the top. So you identify with that person. You say, okay, I might not necessarily be able to help you for what you need, but because I'm connected to these people over here, they might be able to help you. So you can put those people together and they do what they do. Because I feel like, you know, if we're not proactive, we can get, you know, really, really caught up in all the bad stuff that's happening. And then we feel powerless. And when we feel powerless, you know, we kick up dust and we do everything. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, whether you know, throwing a rock or yelling at somebody or fighting, we kicking up because we frustrated. But if we understand that there's positive stuff that we can do to still make a change and make our situations better in our neighborhoods, then I think a lot of us will do that. So we just got to be able to talk and give each other the options to contribute, because it affects us all. I don't care what nobody says. You can't, you know, no matter whether you're from the south side of Chicago, you know, Southwest ATL or South Central LA, everybody's has got their own authentic experience, and we just need to be able to, you know, acknowledge that and help each other.
All right, so I want to open it up for conversation now, right? So I wanted to look at what is a social justice movement, what is a social campaign or social projects. So I just want to look at some of the history in the United States. So when you go all the way back to the 1600s, we had a program that was called the Head Right program. The Head Right program was for English families where the head of the household, which was a man, wanted to move to America, then he was given 50 acres of land and he was given the money to be able to finance whatever his aspirations were on that land. Like if he wanted to do a farm, he was given the to do a farm. That was in the 1600s. Then in the 1800s, we had the Homestead Act, right? The Homestead Act was when try to build these communities, and then white Americans had the opportunity to get money to buy homes and build family wealth by being able to have their own property. And then we go into the 1930s when we were coming out of the Great Depression. And then we look at President Roosevelt and we look at the New Deal Act. And we look at the New Deal Act, we look at all these social programs that were helping people to be able to come back out of depression. But these programs were 90% for all Caucasian Americans, right? So the reason why I want to bring that up is because I wanted to know that white people built wealth and white people moved into the middle class and middle class, not just off of hard work and not just because they pulled together, but also because social programs were put in place that helped them to benefit. So a lot of times when we look at the Black community, we talk about, oh, what should we do? Or what can you do to help bring ourselves up or pull ourselves up? When traditionally, that's not how America was built. And that's not how the communities do have wealth and do have all of these things. That's not how they got there. There were specific programs that funded the growth of different countries, right? So I just wanted to talk about that when I looked at social programming and social, what is a social movement. I want to share a video real quickly. I want to show you guys something real quick. Okay. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay. You guys,
and too many underserved.
Are you guys seeing this video?
Not yet.
It's voting.
Okay, hold on once. You said, what is it doing?
It's loading.
Loading.
It's loading? Okay. Well, tell me, can you hear the audio to it?
Yeah. We can
Communities of color.
You can hear this audio?
Yeah.
In too many underserved communities of color, the roads are falling apart, street lights are out, sidewalks are cracked, school buildings outdated and unsafe, parks aren't safe for the kids to play in or adults to exercise in. There's nowhere you can go to buy fresh food for miles away. Air pollution causes childhood asthma that follows them through their adult lives and affects their overall health condition. Abandoned homes crush property values and diminish the quality of life in the neighborhoods they exist. But notwithstanding these systematic barriers, look at the energy, pride, and achievement of communities of color. Just imagine if we could truly unleash their full potential. My Build Back.
Okay, guys. So that was Joe Biden giving a speech today, and he was talking about systematic oppression and what it's done in the African-American community, how so many opportunities have not reached the African-American community, what does to the pride of the people, and what could happen if people of color were given the same opportunity, were able to live up to their full potential and be able to do things without all these systematic barriers placed in front of them. So I wanted to get into that conversation. I also want to open this up to everybody watching. Go on Facebook Live and leave a comment if you would like to talk about anything that you're thinking. But I wanted to ask you guys, when we're talking about being a social justice leader, change agent, those are some of the things I think about. How do we this oppression that's kept Black people and brown people down in the country since the beginning, since we've been brought up? How do we look at some of the things that are complete disadvantages and inequality? How do we look at what can we realistically impact other people with a common cause, and then go after those things so that future generations won't have to, fight for that. We talk about voting when a lot of us don't know the struggle that our parents and grandparents went through, so that they thought that they embraced that as a barrier for us. So even Joe Biden was pointing out barriers that we still have in our communities from all kinds of different inequalities. So what do you guys think about when you think of some of these things that hold you back or kept you from being able to really, move forward at the rate you wanted to? And what can we do to put together systems that I would like to call them systems of liberation that take that glass ceiling or that barrier away?
I'll say I think that you know, at a time when we were a more insular community, when we were more focused on building in our own communities, we are definitely in a better space. However, the issue is, if you ask Black people at the end of the day, what do they want? The real answer is honestly just to be left alone. Because a lot of what has kept us away from doing things are the systems that are set up to be obstructive to our growth. When we've been left to our own devices, we've been fine. We built Tulsa, we built Rosewood, we built, you know, all of these spaces. One of the things that I'm working on right now is a documentary with some of my sisters about other incidents like Tulsa. And even though I mentioned 2 in my video, right now with my research, I'm up to 45. I'm up to 45 incidents similar to Tulsa that happened, you know, from about 1910 till about 1965. And I'm sure I haven't even cracked the surface on how many there are available. And so there's this system of us as Black people having to reboot every few decades. We have not had equity in this country. We have not been able to build generational wealth. And when you prevent people from having what they need, not only are you preventing them from having the wealth itself, you're preventing them from having financial literacy that can be passed down generationally. So one of the things that we're going to have to look at is, yes, it is up to us to do some self-mending, some self-healing, working together and figuring out what we as a community can do. And I think we should hold each other accountable for that, and we should be working on that. But on the flip side of that, we have to be working on legislation that basically just tells other American citizens to leave us be while we do that, to leave us alone while we do that, to not over police our communities, to not set up the school to prison pipeline, to not, you know, disrupt us and cause us to have food deserts in our community, to not be allowed to move into our communities and open stores and price gouge us to death. You walk in the average corner store, you're going to pay twice as much for everything,
if not more.
Someone else. And I think, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said it's very expensive to be poor. And that is an extremely true statement. So at the end of the day, yes, it's up to us to circulate the Black dollar. It's up to us to build each other up. It's up to us to grab those water boys off the corner and give them alternatives. We can't just say take them off the corner and don't have alternatives for them. That's where we will miss the mark.
So, Kim, I want to jump in if you don't mind. I'm of the mindset that if we pay our taxes, then our taxes, when they go out and they create these opportunities, that the taxes need to be they need to represent the same percentage of the population, the same percentage that we put in, right? And I want to get other people's input on this also. But I do agree with you that we do need to have legislation that protects us, right? But I also think that we need to have opportunities that are generated by our government, opportunities that are generated by the companies that we shop with, opportunities that are generated by the different gatekeepers to make sure that the same way that these other cultures got their Head Start programs, that we have those programs so that we can not only have equality, but have equity, right? But I want to hear from some of you. When we look at being a change agent and we look at, you know, really figuring out what are the problems in our community, what are the problems in our society, and what's keeping us from being able to move forward at we want, create opportunities we want for our families and the lifestyle we want from our families, what would you say that we need to do? What advice would you give to a person watching right now? Let that be a kid who's in high school, or let that be a parent who's trying to raise that child. What would you say to that person?
I would like to add to Kimberly's about circulating the dollar, right? Whew, that is such an important point that I think as early as 10 years old, start grasping that concept, because that idea of circulating the dollar, there's so much in that, and there's so much truth in that. When we were out doing our protests in the streets in front of the Olympic Games, we had a few people come up and say, buy y'all lunch. You know, we like, as far as they wanted to send us, you know, funds to buy lunch. So when we got that, you know what, let's be intentional about this. Let's take it from Black-owned businesses. So all the time we got food brought out to our protests, always catered Black-owned businesses. So when you start thinking like that, when you start having that mindset where even like the clothes you buy, all these t-shirts and these campaigns, like those are the kinds of shirts I want to buy. Those are the types of items I want to buy. I want to buy, if I have an opportunity to go out on a date or whatever, or hanging out with friends, let's go to this Black-owned restaurant. Let's go to this, Black-owned lounge, all these different things. Keep our dollars and support our people, because it starts with us, and we can take small steps every day to make that happen. You can even use your social media platforms to highlight them. Even if you don't ever step foot outside of your house, if you see a cool article on a cool Black-owned business, or if you see a restaurant that you really love, don't be afraid to highlight them on your page. Shout them out. Encourage your friends.
If you don't mind me asking, when you look at from being a change agent or to be like somebody that's pushing social justice forward, how would you relate that to being a change agent? Would you say that you can make changes by bringing economic growth into your community, that you can break the system of oppression by making sure that even if we can't get the government to stimulate our Black businesses, we can do that by allowing other people of color or people who care about the needs of people of color to be able to be knowledgeable on what businesses are in the community, what businesses are fair to the community, what businesses reinvest into the community? Would that be how you would say with dollar, that would change agent in that space?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, with that being said, yeah, as a change, you want to enforce that. Always there, do what you can to support those businesses, but you also have to look at the legislation side of it too. Have conversations with the owners. Have conversations with stakeholders. What are their struggles? Go in and listen to them and see what they're saying, and then that next city council meeting, show up, show out, come with your sign, ready to demonstrate whatever. If they're trying to enforce the law, trying to close certain lounges on one side of town, but they're allowing bars on another side of town to stay open that are 10 minutes away from each other, that right, that's not right. Do that kind of stuff all the time. And that's just, but I think being able to support our businesses from an economic standpoint, and then also the legislation side of it as well.
Okay, so Rob, Josh, both of you guys are Black business owners. What would that look like for you from a legislation or from a support standpoint when you talk about social justice? Like, what barriers have you faced that you feel like we can create a movement around to open up doors for other Black business owners or people who have more businesses that are just coming off the ground? And one thing I want to be very, very, very clear about, for me, I don't just support Black businesses. I support Black businesses that support the Black community. Right? If the Black business does not reinvest into the Black community, if I don't see what you do with the school in your neighborhood, if I don't see that you're employing people that live out of that neighborhood, if I don't see that you're doing something to make sure that you're just not buying a Bentley when your business gets bigger, nothing against having a Bentley, but you're also making sure that those opportunities are spread down, then I'm not going to support your business because I support people who I fight on behalf of, right? Like what Kim just said, it's not about me just moving forward. It's not about my life just progressing. It's about us moving forward collectively as a unit, in my opinion. But like I was saying, Rob, Josh, what would some of those advocacy points look like from the point of view?
I think it's a matter of, everybody being intentional and making a decision that's important. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, I agree with the ladies that, it's our responsibility to make reinvesting in our community and each other our priority. And that's from an economic side. And that's also from legislation and getting involved. I think that the way it works for business owners is when you come up with the idea that it's my responsibility to get involved to make this better so I can keep it going because somebody looked out for me, is the same way that if you in middle school or you are, on the team and you want to make facilities better, you get involved. I think that we have to.
I'm sorry, Rob. We're about to be out of time, but I just wanted to throw something out. When we talk about this, you're doing that in the film industry. You're making sure that you're not just making films, but you're making opportunity for people who have been disenfranchised or been pushed out of the film community to be able to be trained and then be placed. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we have a program that we run out of East Point called Amazing Stories. And we go and we train Black and brown people from our communities how to work on TV and movie sets on the crew, not in writer, director, producer. Everybody can't necessarily do that, but everybody can go and, get a good job that pays and have some good benefits. So we want to be able to open that up so that way all the productions that come to Atlanta look like our city. So a lot of times they don't. you know? So there's a lot of money there. So my thing is, let's give our people the training, and then let's give our people the jobs. So then that way everybody on their block can say, oh, well, that's for me too. And then they'll have the money and they can open the door. But it only works if the people that get that opportunity represent and then open the door for somebody else. You just have to see the value of that. You can't get on and say, now I got the job on the set, so it ends with me. If they do that, then we fail.
I just want to give you a shot because you're a change agent in that space. You're a change agent in the film industry because you've used your platform and your notoriety and your success to be able to open up doors for people who may not have gotten a shot. And I see the same thing with Josh. Josh, after winning championships, he goes into schools where those schools, they may have never gotten the opportunity to be trained by a world-class champion athlete, and they would have never gotten a chance to be able to go after those scholarships, to go after those different opportunities. You go into those schools, into those neighborhoods, and make sure those kids get the same opportunity as any other kid. Real quick, guys, we have 4 minutes left. I wanted to give everybody a second to take 1 minute and just close out with something that you would want to leave people with. Any thoughts, any ideas, anything you just want to share? Hey, Josh, you want to start off?
Yeah, that's cool. I think today, first and foremost, everybody said some truly powerful and amazing things. And lastly, for me, if I could leave off something, it would just be mentality, because I know we talked about resources. I know we talked about training. I know we talked about, the opportunities and things like that. But a lot of times, if our spirit is not in the right place, if we're not truly believing, if we're not truly buying into the things that are important, then it doesn't matter what money or opportunities or training that we give to each other. It's not going to matter if we can't come together. So we got to change our mentality. We really got to buy into the things that we feel is important. We got to do our own work deep within, you know what I mean? Whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally, whether it's spiritually, and we got to get on the same page, and we got to be able to spread that throughout our communities.
Hey, Josh, I just want to say one thing real quick. You do a lot of work, but one way you've been a change agent in my life is every time we talk, he calls me King. Every single time. If he calls me and I'm stressed out about something, he makes sure he bring my energy level back down here so that way I can go out and serve more people, because I can serve better because I'm like this instead of being like this. So to me, that's still a change agent. He's changing his community around him and sparking that change into a greater change. So I want to say, we speak at the Capitol. I'm on the school board. I'm with the juvenile justice. I speak at the Capitol regularly. I do all these different things, but that change can be on in your household, in your community, or on a government level, or in the business field that you're in, or it can be like just in any aspect. But you got to pick up some kind of torch, carry it, and be consistent with it. All right, guys. Anybody else want to close out?
I just want to say shout out to everybody. Shout out to you, Keith, all that you do with making the transition, and of course, just everything, because this platform is possible, with you in it. So we're thankful for you, and you really rallied so many people to get really passionate about local bills impacting us every day. Keith has been adamant the past 2 months about coming to groups and saying, hey, y'all know about this bill? Hey, y'all know about this bill? So we appreciate you, change agent, every day, and doing that. And I just want to, echo the words of Representative John Lewis, who I know, will live in our hearts forever, and so will his legacy. But he always talks about the house and how, we all should live in this house. And I do believe that. I believe that support marginalized communities all around the world. Particularly, right now we need more support with Black and Brown communities. So I'm here to do that. If anybody wants to stay connected, would love to. Just know that we all play our role. Every step makes a difference. Self-care is also a big step. So taking care of yourself in this process and keep taking all the little steps. Thank you.
All right. And also, guys, real quick, let's just give our social media handles. So if anybody's watching, they want to keep up. Ours is Making the Transition. That's Instagram, and then Keith Strickland and Making the Transition on Facebook. Website, makingthetransition.org. Y'all just go through that real quickly.
Yeah, my Instagram, which is where I am most of the time, is just my full name that you see there, Kimberly Latrice Jones.
Okay.
My Instagram is Real Rob Hardy, RealRobhardy.
And my Instagram is Josh21 Powell.
My Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that, Twitter, Hannah Joy.
Can you say it one more time? You cut out.
Hannah Joy TV.
Hannah Joy TV. All right, guys. I believe that's our time. I appreciate you so much. And I really feel like we all came together and added some great value tonight. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Blessings.
What's up, Kimberly?
Hey, Rob, our kids went to school together.
Okay.
By the way, I loved your speech at the Capitol, Kimberly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just crazy and unedited.